James faked his own kidnapping to extort a ransom from me. I sold off all our family assets. My parents, with a pang of heartache, secretly took the ransom to rescue him, but they died in a car accident on the way. Ella, delivering the money for me, was violated and killed by his accomplices. I stumbled upon him and Oliver playfully chatting, only then realizing that his so-called surprise was merely a test of my sincerity towards him. But it cost my entire family 3 lives. The 2 of them had already registered their marriage overseas. He, in turn, blamed me for calling the police and ruining his surprise, openly showing affection with Oliver in front of me. After I reported it to the police, I played Ella's dying recording in court, and eventually, he and Oliver were sentenced to heavy prison terms. In prison, he repeatedly requested to see me to repent, but I didn't give him a single chance. He sharpened a toothbrush to injure someone, then escaped from prison, and was finally shot dead. For his damn surprise, I lost 3 lives from my family. I will make him pay back 1,000 million times over, even in death. And this is just the beginning. After James was kidnapped, I used all my family's wealth to raise the ransom. For my safety, my parents secretly took the ransom to rescue him, but they died in a car accident on the way. I was consumed by self-reproach. While I was arranging my parents' funeral, Ella received a call from the criminals. To spare me further worry, she went along with the money. When I arrived at the rendezvous point, terrified, I found Ella, her clothes torn, locked in an abandoned warehouse and barely clinging to life. Seeing me, her eyes flashed with a pang of guilt and resentment. Dakota, Nova wasn't kidnapped at all. He played our family for fools, as if to confirm her words. The sound of men laughing and joking echoed from behind the warehouse. Jade, your skill at handling women is truly masterful. Unless Jennifer actually sold her company for you, that's incredible. But Jade, aren't you afraid Chris will find out the truth and divorce you? Skylar chuckled, his voice brimming with triumph. Some won't. She'd go bankrupt for me, so a small joke is nothing to her. So, in Skylar's eyes, causing me to lose everything, even my family, was just a trivial joke. Holding the lifeless Ella, I trembled with hatred. Skylar, I can't afford you in my life anymore. Why didn't you come get me? When Skylar found me in my rental apartment, I had been sitting there, numb, for an entire day and night. Seeing my silence, the anger on his face intensified, and his voice grew much louder. Do you have any idea that today, I was planning to propose to you? I spent all night setting up the proposal. How could I not know? As I carried Ella's blood-soaked body away, I saw him and those men from afar, playfully decorating the proposal site, seeing the smiles on each of their faces. Countless times I wanted to rush out and kill them, but I couldn't. I knew I couldn't overpower them. Say something. Sam, you could sell the company and your house for me, so why couldn't you come rescue me? Were you scared? My lips trembling, I opened my mouth, but in the end, nothing came out. I had lost my voice from the moment the doctor pronounced Ella dead. I lost the ability to speak. Skylar seemed enraged by my silence. He took a few steps and grabbed my arm. Sam, are you throwing a tantrum with me? Did I make a mistake preparing a surprise for you? Let me tell you, if you don't appreciate it, plenty of others will. With that, he flung my hand away, walked to the door, and took another person's hand. Only then did I notice that Oliver had been waiting at the door all along. Seeing me look over, she curled her lips into a smile at me. Sam, Benjamin can be a bit reckless sometimes, but he doesn't mean any harm. Always playing hard to get isn't good for your relationship. Today, you take Benjamin with me. Both of you just calm down. Skylar, with her hand hooked in his, gave a tug, their fingers intertwined. Why waste so many words on her? She didn't cherish it, so she has no one to blame. He was always like this. To see me feel a pang of heartache, he would occasionally concoct shocking incidents, making me experience his so-called surprises amidst my terror. For instance, the first time, I was negotiating a $30 million deal, and he called to tell me had been in a car accident. Full of anxiety, I ran through 9 red lights. When I arrived, he was at the intersection, having arranged heart-shaped candles and a path of flowers to propose to me. I couldn't describe the feeling in my heart. All I knew was to hold him tightly, filled with a lingering fear, begging him not to joke about such things again. But he not only ignored me, he got worse. Things like being trapped in a fire, falling off the hill, contracting a serious illness, and so on and so forth. Every time, he would say he wanted to propose to me 520 marriage proposals, ludicrously high number. as a medal of our love, because I loved him, fearing what if. I never dared to succumb to the boy who cried wolf effect, but I never imagined that this time, he would dare to fake a kidnapping, leading to the ruin of my family. And he and Oliver, one thought it was just a joke, the other thought it was just a bit of mischief. They truly were a perfect match. I suddenly regretted that decision from all those years ago immensely. 6 years ago, the Shen family went bankrupt. Oliver, who was engaged to him, publicly called off the engagement. When his face turned ashen with embarrassment and rage, I took his hand. I told everyone, if Oliver won't marry him, I will. In this life, whether Skylar is poor or rich, ordinary or outstanding, I want him. That day, Skylar also held my hand and said he would never let me down in this life. Times changed, and the promises of that year ultimately became empty words. The door closed before my eyes. I pulled the pink diamond ring off my ring finger and placed it on the coffee table in front of me. The next moment, the vase shattered the coffee table, sending ceramic and glass shards flying. Fragments cut across my cheek, my arm, and my calf. Unaware of the pain, I knelt down and searched through the debris for the pink diamond, leaving only the ring setting amidst the scattered fragments. This pink diamond was bought for me by Ella before Skylar and I got married, using 3 months of her saved allowance. I still remember during that time, my quirky Ella tried every possible way to get money from my parents and me. After securing the pink diamond, she secretly found Skylar and, together with him, designed this ring. At that time, none of us imagined that she had racked her brains just to give me a wedding ring. As happy as I was wearing this wedding ring on my wedding day, that's how much pain I felt now. Tears streamed down my face, mixing with blood and dripping onto the pink diamond. I wiped them, but I could never wipe them clean. I cried for a while, holding it, and eventually took it to the police station. After Ella passed, I had been very hesitant, unsure whether to report it to the police. It wasn't for Skylar's sake, but because when I found Ella in an abandoned warehouse, her trembling body and eyes told me unequivocally she was terrified. She was afraid of being seen in such a state, and even more afraid of others touching her body. Once I called the police, it would mean Ella's body would be seen by more people, possibly even undergo an autopsy, even if those people were forensic pathologists. But I had no other choice. I wasn't capable of avenging her myself, yet I couldn't just stand by and watch these criminals get away with it. When Skylar's call came, Ella's body had just been taken away in front of me. I sat in the hallway, crying uncontrollably, as his furious voice erupted from the other end of the line, laced with disbelief. Sam, you called the police. Didn't I tell you? I was just playing a joke, trying to create a surprise for you. This was just a farce. Why would you call the police on them? Don't go too far. Go withdraw the case right now. If even one of them goes to prison because of you, I'm not done with you. Whatever else he said, I didn't listen. Every joke and farce of his was like a knife plunged into my heart. I wanted to scream, to hysterically ask him how, because of his jokes and farces, 3 people in my family had died tragically. All I did was call the police, so how was I going too far? Where exactly did I go too far? I violently hurled my phone against the wall, and the phone screen shattered instantly, unable to make any sound. Back at my rental apartment, Skylar and Oliver were already waiting at the door. Seeing my appearance, he paused for a moment, surprise replacing the faint anger in his eyes. Where have you been? Why do you look like this? I had no intention of responding to them, so I directly took out my keys and intended to open the door. Skylar frowned and forcefully tugged at my shoulder. Sam, is it really necessary to escalate things like this? I'm here now to ask you, do you really insist on making such a scene? Do you intend to break up with me? Hearing this, I gave a bitter laugh. Was there any possibility for us to continue? This relationship, because of my persistence, cost my entire family their lives. How could we possibly continue? I tilted my head, looking at him, letting tears well up in my eyes. I didn't know how to express my emotions, so I just gesticulated wildly with my hands. But Skylar didn't understand. He grew increasingly impatient and waved his hand, hitting my arm. Stop gesticulating. Are you mute? Can't you stop playing hard to get? His force was strong, and coupled with my not having eaten or slept for 2 days, my body was weak, caught off guard. I was thrown off balance, my body spun, and my forehead hit the nearby wall. Stars swam before my eyes, and I slowly slid to the ground, leaning against the wall. When I took my hand away from my forehead, there was blood in my palm. His voice abruptly stopped, As he tried to come help me, Oliver pulled him back from behind. Benjamin, Sam's emotions are unstable right now. You two probably won't communicate well. Let me handle this. You go wait for me downstairs first. Skylar hesitated, glanced at me twice, but still obediently went downstairs. Oliver squatted down to my eye level, her fingers brushing my long hair away from my forehead, and chuckled softly with derision. Sam, do you think it's interesting to pretend like this and seek sympathy? You don't actually believe Benjamin loves you very much, do you? Let me tell you a secret. Actually, Benjamin's family never went bankrupt at all when they said they were bankrupt. It was just his family moving all their assets overseas. All these years, you've just been an object of his amusement when he was bored. I looked at her in disbelief, not daring to fathom the truth or falsity of her words. All these years, my entire family believed Skylar's family had truly gone bankrupt. Fearing to upset him, we accommodated him in every way, not even daring to mention the word bankruptcy in our conversations at home. He constantly tested my family with illnesses and accidents, and everyone just assumed he was insecure due to low self-esteem. Even when he scared us half to death every time, no one ever complained about him. But now, Oliver told me that the Shen family had never been bankrupt from the start. So what did my family's accommodations for the past 6 years mean? I pulled myself up by the wall, numbly wanting to go back inside. Oliver grabbed me. Sam, I advise you to break up with Benjamin as soon as possible. I know you only had a wedding ceremony, but you never actually registered your marriage. 520 marriage proposals, ludicrously high number, was just an excuse to play with you. You don't really think Benjamin would propose to you 520 times, do you? How many times has he proposed now? If he really waited for 520 proposals, you'd be an old woman. Who do you think would still want you then? I had no desire to argue with her, so I raised my hand and pushed her away, but she gasped and fell to the ground. In less than a minute, Skylar rushed up from downstairs. Oliver quickly scrambled to her feet and immediately stood between Skylar and me, tears instantly welling up. Benjamin, don't be impulsive. Sam is just too angry. She didn't mean to hit me. At this point, I no longer had the inclination to explain anything to Skylar. How he viewed me no longer mattered. I turned and inserted the key into the keyhole. The moment the door opened, Skylar, suppressing his rage, called my name. Sam, apologize. Without stopping, I entered the house, completely shutting the two of them out. In the cramped bedroom, my parents' photos were placed side by side on a makeshift table made of bedside cabinets. I knelt before their photos and slapped myself hard twice. It was my fault. My judgment was so poor to have fallen for such a man. Now, with the Jiang family company lost and my family gone, I finally realized that I had been nothing but a joke from beginning to end. I didn't know when I had fallen asleep. When I was awakened by knocking at the door, it was already broad daylight. The moment the door opened, the two police officers visibly exhaled in relief. They told me that out of the 4 suspects, only 1 had been caught so far. The other 3 had fled overseas early on and were in hiding. When I went with them to identify the suspect, I saw Skylar being brought in. His hands were cuffed, and as he passed me, his eyes were bloodshot. Sam, your love is nothing more than this. I didn't look back, following the officers into the observation room adjacent to the interrogation room. Through the glass, I saw the shortest man among the 4. The police officer told me that he said Skylar had no idea Ella had gone to the abandoned warehouse. Initially, they cooperated with Skylar simply for the money, but later, seeing how high the ransom Skylar demanded from me was, they grew greedy. They figured Skylar wouldn't dare to call the police anyway. Rich people would play any kind of game. If he reported it, I'd have to go down with them. So that they called me without Skylar's knowledge. When Ella arrived at the abandoned warehouse, few of them had been drinking. Seeing the pure and beautiful Ella, and fueled by alcohol, they committed the crime. Later, they went too far, and only panicked when they saw Ella bleeding profusely. But before their pants were even fully buckled, Skylar arrived. They didn't dare let Skylar find out, so they left Ella lying alone in the abandoned warehouse. Afterward, Skylar asked them to help set up the proposal site, saying he would give me this surprise when I came to deliver the ransom. They were frantic. At one point, they thought the person in the warehouse was me. It wasn't until Skylar finished his preparations and was sleeping in the car that they went back to the abandoned warehouse to look for Ella, only to find blood everywhere. The person was gone. Whether she was dead or had escaped, it filled them with immense fear. So the few of them put their heads together divided the money, and each fled overseas. Only he, because he had family, was a step late in leaving and was caught. Coming out of the interrogation room, I asked them on a piece of paper, my hands trembling, "Can I observe Skylar's interrogation?" Normally, that wouldn't be allowed, but given my special relationship with Skylar, and the fact that Skylar didn't know about Ella's fate, they nodded and agreed. In the interrogation room, Skylar had turned his face away, his chest rising and falling repeatedly, as if sulking. It wasn't until the police officer entered that he unhappily straightened his face and spoke. "I've said it many times already. I just wanted to give my wife a surprise. We didn't commit any crime. Can't you understand plain English?" The police officer threw the folder onto the table, almost laughing in exasperation. "Surprise? Do you know someone died?" Skylar's expression froze. "As someone died? Nonsense. How would I not know if someone died? Besides, what does someone dying have to do with us?" The police officer raised his eyebrows, looked at him, and opened the file in front of him. "The deceased's name is Phoenix. She was violated and killed by your 4 accomplices when she went to deliver the ransom for you. Do you still think this has nothing to do with you now?" Skylar shut up, his face instantly turning utterly pale. "What did you say? Who did you say died?" "Phoenix. Impossible. You're lying to me. You must be lying to me." Skylar slumped back into the interrogation chair, defeated. Although he refused to admit it verbally, he knew deep down that the police wouldn't lie about something like this. But how could this be? Sam hadn't said anything. Thinking of my name, he suddenly froze. Only at this moment did he recall my recent unusual behavior. Before, I, who loved him desperately, for the first time didn't go to pick him up after his kidnapping, for the first time didn't yield to his threats to withdraw the case, and for the first time gave him the cold shoulder. Out of anger, he deliberately returned home accompanied by his ex. When I refused to back down, he intentionally held his ex's hand to provoke me. Skylar smiled, and as he smiled, tears streamed down his face. "I'm a bastard, bastard." He cursed himself while painfully pounding the table, his shackles clanking and scraping the skin on his wrists. But this wasn't enough. The police officer flipped through the folder in his hand, paused, and looked at him again. In this incident, Phoenix was not the first victim. Before this, the Jiang couple also died instantly when their car collided with a Michael while rushing to deliver the ransom for you. Skylar froze completely, the pallor on his face like that of a walking corpse. He sniffled, then looked up, his eyes filled with anguish. "What exactly do you want? Why are you telling me all this? Why are you torturing me? I didn't kill them. I didn't know anything. I just, he broke down in tears, retching several times, but still couldn't banish the heavy remorse and pain from his heart. But what good was this now? My family, they would never come back. After the interrogation, the police officer said Skylar wanted to see me. I sat in the visiting room, light streaming in from the window, casting a reflection on the metal table. Skylar's footsteps hesitated at the door for a moment, then he slowly walked over. Hearing the clanking of his shackles, I didn't look up. You seem to have lost more weight. He sat down, speaking in a familiar, casual tone. I wasn't in the mood for small talk, so I pushed the questions I had already written on the notepad towards him. He looked at the notepad, his expression growing somewhat complex. You really can't speak anymore. Seeing I had no intention of replying, he took a deep breath and answered my questions. Yes, the Shen family never went bankrupt. I lied to you, Sam, but I only lied to see how different you were from Oliver, to see how much you could love me. As for those men, I truly didn't know they would be so bold. Oliver said they were just unfortunate laborers from a construction site. I only just now realized they were idle thugs. I hadn't expected Oliver to have a hand in this. Skylar, you are incredibly foolish. Having received the answers I wanted, I no longer had any desire to be in the same space as him. As I stood up to leave, Skylar quickly stood up and called out to me, Sam, I know you hate me very much right now, but whether you believe it or not, I never intended to harm you or your family from the very beginning. And Phoenix, I've always regarded her as my own Ella. Tears streamed down my face again. I wiped away my tears, turned around, erased the questions on the notepad, and picked up the pen again. Does it matter whether you intended to or not? They are dead, all because of you. Skylar, you are unforgivably guilty. As I left the police station, Oliver was also escorted in. Her face was panicked, and she kept yelling, What right do you have to arrest me? What crime did I commit? Let me go. Do you know who I am? When she saw me, her voice abruptly ceased. Ignoring the resentment in her eyes, I nodded to the police officers and left directly. After I left, Skylar, back in the detention center, lay awake all night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Phoenix's sweet smile as she called him Nova. She was only 19 years old. She should have had a bright future, but because of him, everything was ruined. Skylar hated himself, but he hated those men and Oliver even more. He belatedly realized that if Oliver hadn't deceived him, how would he have hired such scum? But Oliver refused to plead guilty. She vehemently insisted that when she introduced the man, she had no idea Skylar intended to do anything illegal. Upon hearing this, Skylar sneered and had his lawyer contact his elder brother. The Shen family had 2 children. Skylar's elder brother, Emma, was a highly intelligent individual. When the Shen family faced a crisis back then, it was he who turned the tide, advocating for the family business to be moved overseas. Over the years, he not only expanded and strengthened the Shen family's presence overseas but also developed considerable influence. Within a few days, Emma had the other 3 men escorted back from different countries. This was my first time meeting Emma. He bought back the company and the house I had sold off earlier and placed the deeds before me. Back then, everyone thought the Shen family was bankrupt and coldly mocked Skylar, but only you stepped forward and never despised him. It was precisely because of that we felt at ease leaving him in the country with you. No one expected this brat to become so spoiled and arrogant, causing all sorts of trouble. Our Shen family is truly sorry for what happened to you. All of this should have been yours. Additionally, if there's any compensation you desire, feel free to ask. I don't want to morally coerce you, but the Shen family cannot have an heir who has served time in prison. As he spoke, he pushed a blank check towards me. Looking at the check, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Does your Shen family truly believe money can solve everything? Emma, I have no family left. What meaning do money or houses hold for me now? I will not issue a letter of forgiveness. Otherwise, for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be able to face my parents and Ella. As for whether your Shen family is well connected and how you choose to operate, that's your business. I drove Emma away, along with the company equity transfer agreement and the property transfer agreement. I threw them all out. Emma didn't seek me out again. Instead, he hired a highly reputable attorney, recognized both domestically and internationally. But on the day of the trial, Skylar refused to cooperate at all. The lawyer tried desperately to clear him of charges, but he repeatedly took all the blame upon himself. Furthermore, the 4 men who harmed Ella, having been pressured by Emma, didn't dare to tell a single lie. Oliver's schemes were confirmed. She not only knew Skylar had faked the kidnapping but also secretly paid them to deal with me. Even when the last few individuals fled the country, Oliver assisted them. With multiple testimonies and transfer records as evidence, Oliver finally understood fear. In court, she knelt before me, clutching the railing. Sam, I know I was wrong. I didn't mean to harm your Ella. Please forgive me. Please don't prosecute me. I beg you, I don't want to go to prison. Her words were interrupted by the judge's gavel. After being silenced, her eyes grew increasingly desperate. Finally, under the court's ruling, the 4 criminals, due to the severe nature of their crimes, were each sentenced to 17 years in prison. As for Skylar, because he refused to cooperate with his lawyer, he was convicted of fraud and negligent homicide, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Oliver, having introduced individuals to commit crimes with full knowledge of their criminal intent, incited criminal acts, and committed the crime of harboring criminals, received a combined sentence of 6 years in prison. When the verdict was announced, Oliver collapsed onto the floor, wetting herself. Skylar, on the other hand, ignored Emma's angry gaze and smiled tearfully at me. Sam, I made a mistake, so I made sure that everyone who harmed Phoenix received their deserved punishment. Can you forgive me? Can you wait for me and give me another chance? I didn't know what made him so confident that he believed I would still be with him after he caused the deaths of my entire family. I simply watched in silence as they were escorted away. My heart held no joy, only sorrow. Even if they were all sentenced one by one, what did it change? The lost ones wouldn't return, and the pain in my heart wouldn't fade. Everything was over. I retrieved Ella's body after cremation. I carried her ashes back to my rental apartment. Just as I reached the door, I saw Ari sitting on the stairs. Seeing me return, he stood up, his eyes filled with heartache and concern. We exchanged silent glances, and I managed a smile at him. He took a few steps down and enveloped me in a full embrace. Sam, if I hadn't come back, would you have never called me, even until you died? I knew I should push him away, but when his warmth radiated through my thin clothes, I found myself desperately clinging to it. My stiff fingers tightly gripped his lapel, tears overflowing from my eyes, and I couldn't help but burrow deeper into his embrace. In that moment, all the grievances and bitterness I felt could no longer be hidden. My lips silently parted and closed, and inside, I wept uncontrollably. Ari, I no longer have my parents, nor Ella. From now on, I have no family left. Ari, it's not fair. They killed my Ella. Why weren't they sentenced to death? Ari, I'm so sad. I miss them. I miss my mom and dad. I miss my Ella. Ari sighed, gently rubbing his chin against my head, holding me even tighter. Sam, you idiot. Why are you smiling at me when you're so sad? After learning I had lost my voice, Ari, with reddened eyes, retreated to the kitchen. I sat on the sofa, watching him busy himself in the kitchen, and found myself inadvertently thinking of the past. Ari and I grew up in the same building. We were in the same class since kindergarten. We promised to go to elementary school, high school, and college together. For 19 whole years, we were even. I always thought my relationship with Ari was like that of a brother and sister. It wasn't until the day of the graduation celebration that he, blushing, confessed his feelings to me. I ran. It was also that night that I met Skylar. He was the one who, driving a sports car, gave me a ride home when I was caught in the rain by the roadside. From that day on, I consciously and unconsciously sought information about Skylar. It wasn't until I found out he had a girlfriend that I forced myself to give up those feelings. Later, hearing that the Shen family had gone bankrupt, I couldn't help but worry and went to find them, only to encounter Oliver blocking the Shen family's entrance. Having publicly called off the engagement, seeing Skylar humiliated, I acted on impulse and rushed out without thinking. Ari's enthusiasm for me also faded after that day. On the eve of Skylar's and my wedding, he pressed a rather humble pendant into my hand. Sam, remember this. I wish for your happiness more than anyone, but if you're unhappy at any time, just tell me, and I'll take you away. The next day, he didn't attend my wedding. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes told me he had gone overseas to study. From then on, we were like two people lost in the wind. Neither of us actively sought out the other again, but it turned out that true care never truly drifts apart. Noodles are ready. Ari, carrying a steaming bowl of soup, interrupted my thoughts. Green onions floated in the golden egg blossoms. I used clumsy sign language to praise him for how beautifully he cooked the noodles, but he gripped my hand, his eyes incredibly earnest. Sam, you don't need to be formal with me. Remember this. From now on, I am your family. Ari and I went together to choose the cemetery. Ari was very generous, buying 5 graves in one go, all in a row. I asked him why he bought so many. He proudly pointed to each gravesite and introduced them to me. See, Auntie will be next to Uncle. Ella will be in the middle, and the other 2 spots are reserved for us. We're family. After all, it's livelier when we're together. I chided him for talking nonsense, but my heart couldn't help but feel a warmth. Are you moving in with us, the Jiang family? Aren't you afraid Queen will beat you up? He tilted his head, looking nonchalant. Why be afraid? They'll eventually understand that a grown son can't be kept at home forever. After settling my parents and Ella, Ari completely settled into my rental apartment. He insisted on taking me to psychological counseling every day, encouraged me to exercise, and was gentle and thoughtful towards me. But secretly, behind his back, I went to see Skylar. I didn't initiate it, but when the prison called to say Skylar was on a hunger strike and wanted to see me, I didn't refuse. Skylar had lost weight, and his beard wasn't as neatly shaped as before. When he saw me, a sudden light sparked in his hazy eyes, as if I were his only hope. From the first time, he insisted on seeing me almost every month. If I didn't agree, he would start a hunger strike. What Skylar said to me was nothing more than very ordinary, simple greetings, asking how I was doing lately, if I was eating well, sleeping well, or if I missed him. He missed me greatly. Sometimes he would dream of me, and also of Phoenix and my parents. At the end of our conversations, he would always pound on the thick glass partition, shouting for me to wait for him. I never responded once. 3 years passed like this. Ari and I went to visit the graves. As we descended the hill, Ari waited for me by the car. A truck dragging a steel coal approached. The steel coal, probably not secured properly, swayed precariously and finally fell off as the truck was about to pass Ari. The steel coal, due to inertia, quickly rolled towards Ari's car. Watching Ari, who had his back to the steel core. I was incredibly anxious. As I rushed towards him, the words "be careful" burst from my lips. Ari was fine. Upon hearing my warning, he instinctively turned sideways. The massive steel core smashed the car door and stopped rolling. Still shaken, I rushed over and hugged Ari, with only one thought in my mind: I cannot lose any more loved ones. The next time I saw Skylar, I didn't bring my notepad. Holding the receiver, I looked at him and spoke clearly, enunciating each word. "Skylar, you're getting married. So, from now on, don't look for me anymore, and I won't come to see you either." Watching the joy that had sparked in his eyes upon hearing my voice shatter at my words, I felt a strange sense of vengeful satisfaction. He shook his head, his eyes red, his trembling fingers pressed against the glass. At this very moment, he deeply regretted why he had insisted on 520 marriage proposals, ludicrously high number, before registering their marriage. "No, son, you're my wife. Don't marry anyone else, please." I curled my lips into a slight smile and pressed my advantage. "Skylar, you should have known long ago that there's no future for us. All these years, every time I close my eyes, the horrific image of Phoenix's death appears in my mind. Tell me, how can I carry all this and be with you?" Skylar couldn't speak. His face grew paler and paler. After a long time, the hand holding the phone dropped limply. I hung up the phone and walked out of prison. Ari was waiting for me outside, riding his bicycle. This time, I brought him. Skylar was dead. He tricked Emma into pulling some strings for him, and during a recreation break, he used a sharpened toothbrush to stab 4 people. Finally, he tried to escape prison and was shot dead. When Emma found me, Ari and I were trying on a wedding dress. His gaze swept over Ari, then he thrust Skylar's final letter into my arms. "I will definitely fulfill what my brother entrusted to me. As for you, from now on, consider our grievances quits. My brother owes you nothing more." I didn't open Skylar's final letter. I lit it on fire and threw it into the sewer. At this point, what he said no longer mattered. Just as Emma said, we were quits. That night, I crept into Ari's bed. I wanted to kiss him, but he held me tightly against his chest. "Son, don't always try to seduce me when you're sad." I clutched his shirt collar and burrowed deeper into his embrace. "Ari, do you think I'm a bad woman?" Ari sighed and kissed my forehead. "I knew you'd overthink things. Silly girl, there's no rule in this world that says you have to be a good person. If being a good person doesn't make you happy, I'd rather you be a bad one." That's Ari for you. Someone who always expresses his favoritism without reservation. Yes, for the past 3 years, every encounter with Skylar was a calculated move on my part. I deliberately kept Skylar guessing. I wanted him to never forget me, to never be able to let go. For 3 years, he wavered between hope and despair, constantly firming his resolve only to doubt himself again. Then, the news of my impending marriage was like a death sentence, completely shattering the hope he had built over 3 years. After that, I brought up Ella's tragic death again, stating that I couldn't forget it, couldn't move past it. I suspected Skylar would act, but I wasn't entirely sure. The human heart, after all, is the most fickle thing. Fortunately, Skylar understood. He knew what I wanted, so he acted. If Oliver hadn't been in a women's prison, he might have even killed her. But it didn't matter. He enlisted the help of Emma, who had powerful connections. Later, I heard Oliver was living a terrible life. She was frequently bullied in prison. She even had her leg broken and didn't dare say she'd been beaten, only that she'd fallen. The day Oliver was released from prison, Ari and I welcomed our first child. She had a slight resemblance to Phoenix, and I named her Ava. Ari had no objections. On Ava's first-month birthday celebration, discussions about Oliver's death were rife online. Oliver died a terrible death. She died in a city alleyway in a bustling district. Barely clothed, she had a total of 12 stab wounds, large and small, but none were fatal. In other words, she bled to death. After the killer was caught, they claimed they only stabbed her out of anger because she bit and cursed at them. As for every stab wound avoiding vital organs, the perpetrators simply insisted it was a coincidence. Whether it was truly a coincidence or not, the answer no longer mattered to me. Ari and I took Lily to sweep the graves on the hill, returning as the sun set. From then on, our days and nights now free of sorrow, our lives lived with gentle serenity.